Hello, everyone. As you start coming on in, welcome. It is Banner and Backbone presenting a vet talk with myself, Nick Perro, and my good friend, colleague here at Banner and Backbone, as well as investigative journalist and reporter Melissa Corrigan, Navy vet, who
Hello,
is
hello.
who is digging into and has become a pretty good investigative reporter at this point. Um, I don't think this was your original career choice.
I did
But
this many, many years ago, and so I'm just returning back.
but you're pretty good at it. So I'm glad to have you. I'm glad to have you here to talk about it. And so Melissa, do you want to introduce the topic of conversation that we're going to be going into today? Because this is a vet talk on some of the shit that's going on for folks either getting ready to get out of the service or being encouraged to get out so that they can let some of their wildest inhibitions loose. And so I want you to introduce what we're going to be talking about today, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, we are going to be talking about an alteration that SecDev made to an existing program called SkillBridge that was a transitional program from active duty to the civilian world, in which you can, as active duty, spend your last 180 days of your contract now working with DHS or CBP. So you can go to work for ICE while active duty military.
Yes. Yeah. And so before we go any further, so everybody knows, transition programs like SkillBridge have existed for a long time. In fact, I utilized a SkillBridge program while I got out of the Army to get a CDL license and learn how to become a professional truck driver, and contribute back to my community in a positive way. This is not that.
This is
Um,
not that.
this
And
is
it's
not
been
upskilling.
right. And it is noted in almost every documentation about this program. And even in SecDev's memo to all the military departments on this, he literally says this is an exception to policy. So I've been digging into this last night and this morning, and I am struggling to find the policy that he referred to because I would love to read. I'm assuming that policy would draw a delineating line between law enforcement activities of DHS and CBP with active duty military. So I'm looking for that. Something I've noted that goes right along with the utter ineptitude and lack of training and ability of these cartoon cabinet members to do their jobs is when you issue a formal memorandum and you reference a policy, it's typically procedure in the footnotes to put that policy. That doesn't exist in this memo, the actual policy he's referring to, of course. So I'm going to have to go back and dig through probably mountains of DoD policy. Well, actually, this is specifically the Defense Human Resource Agency policy, is what he is saying. There's an exception, that this memorandum is providing an exception to that policy. So I'm going to have to go find the actual policy to find what exception he's making, because I can't stress this enough. This is highly unusual, highly unusual. Not only is the amount of participation with DHS and Border Patrol unusual, a spokesperson, let me find a spokesperson from the Defense Human Resource Department said in an article that prior to let's see, prior to this memo, their job was, and I've linked all of these I've linked all of these. I've sent them to Nick, so they'll be linked in the follow-up and hopefully in the chat. So a representative from the Defense Human Resources Department did issue a statement that this is unusual in that they have never told an exiting a transitioning service member what to do. They've never encouraged one career field over the other. They made themselves available. And they made these programs like SkillBridge available to help transition that service member out. And what this man said is what's unusual here is we are being asked to push and prioritize this program. So to suggest to the transitioning out service member, hey, why don't you go work for ICE? Why don't you go work for Border Patrol? And that is highly unusual in persuading, and that would even infringe or into the territory, I would think, of another violation of the Hatch Act.
Yeah. Also, one of the things I'm reading, and language and words are important and they mean things, especially in military protocol, SOPs, documentation, things like that. I'm going to read the words that are used in the actual Secretary of Defense's memorandum. It says the military departments will approve service member requests for SkillBridge participation with CBP and ICE to the maximum extent possible in the last 180 days of service. Requests should be disapproved only where approval would impact the critical readiness and operational needs of the military service concerned. That means 99.99% of people who do apply will get it because they are not going to be deemed mission critical unless or even during a war. This is not about military readiness. This is not about defense readiness. This is not about preparedness or troop safety. This is about approving active duty service members. This is for active duty service members in any active branch can, for the final 180 days of their service contract, not including paid time off that they would then get, either could take extra time. They could, at the end of that 180 days, go, you know what? I'm going to re-enlist. So you now have service members who can unaccountably, because I had a friend who did that. He would get close to the end of his 180 days and re-enlist just long enough that he could restart the transition process all over again. Can't stop you from going to transition services. They legally cannot stop you from going to transition services. And now, if you ask, or when they recommend and you say, yeah, sure, I'll do that, they will give you all 180 days over and over again. They are going to allow the most bigoted people who are within 180 days of leaving, 6 months of their service contract left, half a year. So if some bigot who now has his service record clean because bullying and harassment is being reassessed, or soon gets that record clean and can have an honorable discharge, they can now honorably, during the last 180 days, go be an unaccounted bigot who could then get recalled at any point in time to active service, which means they are still federal troops, which
Yes.
still violates the Posse Comitatus Act because they are owned by the federal government as service members. Your contract doesn't end until it ends. And if you are a service member, it is against law to perform Customs and Border Patrol enforcement operations if you are doing legal and policing actions. You cannot do policing activities within the United States. That's what CBP does. That's what ICE does.
And this provides the president a tidy loophole when he is unable to gain congressional authority to deploy troops in the United States they can utilize this loophole because the numbers we're talking about, of course, they're not going to show us accurate numbers from this year, but we can reflect back to 2024. And just in the first half of 2024, 12,000 service members were in the SkillBridge program. 12,000 in the first 6 months. So we can look at, I conservatively estimate that we're going to see higher numbers than that. And considering they are essentially telling the Defense Human Resources Department to push ICE as the general direction that they want these transitioning service members to go, who knows what kind of numbers we're going to see when it's all said and done. Again, that's if we ever truly see the real numbers attached to this.
Yeah. And that's also to like, they're not going to push this to everybody. They're only going to push this to certain members who are transitioning. Like,
but here's the other thing about that. They are, for anyone who doesn't want to go grunt style and go do more of the heavy lifting, so to speak. One of these articles at the Department of War website points out that if you currently have an admin type job in the services, what they're going to do is replace you. They're going to replace a desk jockey, so to speak, at ICE who is interested in going out in the field. So they're still going to use you to empower another body in the field. You're going to go take over that desk job. And now that desk job jockey who's very excited to go get his boots on the ground will be freed up to do that.
yeah. Enabling fascism by becoming a desk jockey is still enabling fascism. Like,
Correct.
Don't forget that. Like, don't let people get away with pushing paperwork for fascism and say, oh, I'm not a fascist or I'm not supporting this. I'm just doing my job. So are the soldiers in Germany who were professional soldiers who just stayed in the army because they were just doing their job. That didn't help them at the Nuremberg trials. Or that teacher, it allows people who, like that teacher in Germany who was a kindergarten teacher who then became someone who shot his neighbors in the head and put them in mass graves. Like, that's what it lets people do, is it lets the worst come out in others, and you're just enabling it in a different way.
And I also found buried on the Homeland Security site as on that veterans employment page, there is an additional program that's just slightly, if you have someone who's of this mindset but doesn't want to go boots on the ground, there's another program called Operation Warfighter. And what that does is allow active duty military who are currently wounded, who are currently receiving medical treatment, to also go to work, doing administrative work for DHS. And part of their responsibilities is processing FOIA requests. I find that absolutely insane, because if you don't know what you're processing a FOIA request is not a desk jockey duty. That's something that's the duty of someone who knows what they're doing and knows the law and can properly transmit that information to the American citizen that requested it. If you are someone that's of the ideology and the mentality of what we're seeing come out of the Stephen Millers and the Pete Hegseths and Trump, are you going to process a FOIA request for someone requesting, I don't know, how many service members are in SkillBridge with DHS right now? Are you going to give me that information? Probably not.
Yeah. And which demographics are going? Like, we know the answer on which demographics are going most likely, but data is important and having proof is important, because we live in a system of laws and order. And to have real law and order, we actually have to prove that there are actions that people should be held accountable for. And some of these things may never get proof, but demanding things like this and showing that they're actually happening in real time is how we maintain the idea of accountability. Because
Right.
if there is a possible violation of your contract and your oath as a service member, and we can shine a bright enough spotlight on it and how UCMJ could be applied and used to hold service members that do that accountable for violating their service oath and contracts, I bet you a lot of service members won't do it. They'll wait till
Right.
they get out because they don't want to get a dishonorable discharge, because a dishonorable discharge basically means you have less rights at getting a job or less opportunities at getting a job than most felons do. Like, dishonorable discharges are the end of your career at 25, 26 for a lot of these folks who will get them because they do something stupid as a kid and get a dishonorable discharge. But some of these folks, it would end their careers, um, and it would be a day too late that it took this long.
And also, to going back to your point about the demographic, something I noted when I was looking up the information on this, every website, every web page that references this program only, only has promotional photos of white men.
Yes, and that goes in conjunction with the new promotional photos that are coming out and artwork or propaganda work that is coming out from DHS specifically on X, where it's defend the homeland and things like that. I'm surprised they haven't said defend the fatherland yet.
Yeah.
That's next, just so people are aware, like the next things that you're probably going to hear, starting like big things that may come out of DHS will may include the words fatherland at some point. And because they're going to just get really overt because they don't have any consequences until they do. Um,
Right.
and part of what we're doing here and part of why we're reporting on stuff like this and why I asked Melissa to come on is because the only way you hold people accountable is you report it in real time and you expose the truth, because fascism hates the light. Fascism hates having a spotlight shined on the heinous and despicable acts that are going on. And so, to reintroduce what we're talking about today for anybody who has come in late and has only gotten into part of the conversation, it may be fairly obvious, but I want to make sure it's very clear, is we are talking about Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth, the dumbass who is doing dumbass things in our country, um, is further politicizing and risking the careers of service members by creating a SkillBridge program for active duty service members during the last 180 days of their active duty contracts to be pushed towards joining DHS or yeah, DHS for the Border Customs and Border Patrol for CBP and ICE to do active policing on American soil while still contracted as a service member in a armed forces, which is against the Posse Comitatus Act, because you are not allowed as an active duty service member to perform policing operations unless the Insurrection Act has been invoked. And I don't know. Has that happened yet? Not today. Not yet, anyway.
And that really sheds whole new light on the masking, on the covering of name tapes and any identifying information. Of course, if you are literally active duty Army or Marines, you're not going to show your face as you're beating up civilians outside an ICE center in Portland or LA or
Mhm.
Chicago. And,
Especially
as
when you're supposed to be on the southern border, because that's
right,
what this would be for. And if you're somewhere other than the southern border, then you're in
right,
the wrong fucking spot.
right.
And
Right.
that's
Well, it
even
does.
worse.
There is a caveat deep in there. Of course, the military, that military phrase, or other needs as required. So there is a little caveat somewhere buried deep in one of these pages
Of course.
that
Always a
that
little.
does give you that little the loophole that, hey, if we have enough people on the southern border and we need you elsewhere that is mission critical, we can always pull you to that. But when, as one of my readers said, this explains these guys rappelling out of Black Hawk helicopters and him thinking, wow, that's pretty advanced skills for National Guard. It's because it's not National Guard. It's
Yeah.
not National Guard. These are actually guys. And, I saw another video where they opened the gate at the ICE facility, I believe in Portland, and they just marched out. And I said, this looks like a video of troops just marching out in the street in Fallujah or Baghdad. And now I know why they
It
look
makes
like
sense.
that.
Yeah.
These are combat trained veterans being set loose on our streets. And if it's not, prove me wrong.
Prove it. Take the masks off
Anybody
and
from the
prove us.
DOD, anybody from the DOD that wants to prove me wrong today, send me proof that we don't have active duty Army, Navy, Marines, and airmen on the fucking ground outside ICE facilities, beating up our citizens, throwing 84-year-old Vietnam vets on the ground. Somebody prove me wrong, because I'm
Throwing
fucking pissed.
throwing a congressional candidate in Illinois, Kat Abigazela, on the ground.
Right,
Like small girl, like
right.
small woman. She is not a big woman. Like, she got her ass thrown on the fucking ground for daring to ask a question. There have been 17 Democratic lawmakers, democratically elected Democratic lawmakers, not Republicans. 17 Democratic lawmakers from federal to state to date have been arrested and have had charges levied against them for their congressionally mandated act and constitutionally mandated acts of oversight. It's literally their job. Like, their job is oversight, and they have been thrown in jail for it. 17 Democrats, no
Yeah.
Republicans, for asking to go inside ICE buildings that they have the constitutional authority to enter. Also, here's
Someone
another.
asked, hold on, let me interject real
Yeah.
quick. Someone asked in the chat, when did this start? The memorandum was signed on May 28th of this year, and it was publicly announced, although very, very quietly. There was an article released June 6th and another statement from the DOD on June 12th. So this has been flying under the radar for months.
Yeah. And also, one other thing, too, for service members, if you are actively participating in this and you have an active security clearance and you are working with felons and you are not reporting that, you better expect when your face comes out, you're going to get a call about the fact that you had a security clearance with a felon and you did not report that on your documentation, which you are required to do to maintain your security clearance. Security clearances allow you to see and access secret to top secret to compartmentalized information that you need to have a need and a purpose to have. Yet you are, and it's illegal to be in close connections while you maintain an active security clearance, especially if you have a top secret one. They're active duty service members. Pretty much anyone in the Navy or Air Force or Space Force or Coast Guard, y'all have pretty good security clearances at this point. Most people in the Army do too nowadays. Most Marines have a secret security clearance. You're risking your security clearance in any job you want to ever get because not reporting that on your paperwork for security clearance reevaluation. And when the FBI, who actually, some of them still do their jobs, and when the FBI is run by a trusted and real agent, you will be found out. You will lose your clearances. You can be charged for treason, for leaking classified information. You can be charged. You can be remanded back into service for UCMJ, Uniform Code of Military Justice, regulation violations, and court-martialed and sent to Leavenworth, which is not a fun fucking prison to go. That is a military prison. That's just one of them. You don't get the same rights as citizens do. You made an oath and you signed a contract. And if you're violating that contract, we'll hold you accountable. Your service records are public record. And guess what? Your DHS record is public record too. Accountability comes for you. And it looks like your future getting fucked. So make good choices, idiots, because holding fascists accountable means holding them financially accountable for bad choices and legal accountability for illegal actions. And if they do both, well, you should have both punishments. That's your fault. Actions have consequences, folks. And this, especially because it is out of the norm, will not hold up very well in the long term. If you think this protects you, it doesn't. When things are out of the norm, they don't hold up. Like,
No.
legally speaking, they don't hold up. And when a competent JAG branch is back in place and a judge advocate general um who is going to uphold full UCMJ values and uphold accountability for service members who did the wrong things, sorry, not sorry. Just your career, you fuck up. So make choices wisely. And I had somebody ask me, and I'm writing a piece called Dear Nick, Dear Citizen. It's like a Dear Ann style question of just like, hey, I have a question I want an answer to. It's like, how do I feel about everything going on? And how would I like communicate to somebody in my family who's about to enlist in the services? Is tell them exactly that is actions have consequences, and your actions will live with you for the rest of your life as a service member. If you allow yourself to get dishonorably discharged because of the whims of an idiot, and because you don't have the control as an adult to say this is wrong, you should not join. If you can't control yourself, you don't
Yeah.
deserve to wear that uniform, and tell them they don't deserve it. Shame them out of it if they're unwilling to live up to the most basic tenets of an oath. Like, if they can't do that, and if they're willing to then violate their oath to do something like this, and tell them that options like this are illegal and that they will cause legal ramifications when you're done, you remind people of the accountability it can cause them personally, and they'll start listening.
This is a terrible idea. This is a terrible. If you are separating from the military and they are pushing you in SkillBridge to go DHS, say no, thank you. Say no, thanks. Please teach me how to be a welder. Please teach me how to be a plumber. Please, I'll go work elsewhere, but no, thank you. I am not going to participate in this.
Yeah, yeah. Do the right thing. Just have a little courage. Have some courage. Have some personal accountability and courage to say no when you know something is wrong. Like, all of our
Right.
parents, even you people who are living in the most patriarchal of systems, everybody who, even from the most patriarchal to the matriarchal, they still all say, if you think it's wrong, say no. They just don't define what wrong is the same way. But you know deep down that you do not want American soldiers, active duty service members who could easily get recalled to service during their Border Patrol and ICE raids. They could then get recalled to service and activated for a war. You do not want those people in the ranks.
We're
They
already
are
seeing.
toxic.
Yesterday there was video from Portland, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I
Oh,
believe
the
it was
paintballers
Portland
shooting down.
with the snipers on the roof shooting
Yeah.
into the crowd of visibly peaceful protesters that were just standing there.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just going through in my mind all of the video. I'm so fucking mad about this, Nick. I'm so angry. Like, I'm thinking of all the videos that I've seen now over the past couple of months of what these ICE agents look like as they are attacking American citizens again and again, apparently with immunity, with complete total. I mean,
Hmm.
they're just allowed to put their hands on protesters, to shoot protesters at close range, to injure, um, unlawfully detain. Uh, we have to start thinking about the very real possibility that we have a much larger infiltration of active duty military and ICE than we can possibly like kind of fathom at this time.
Yeah. Yeah. And we have to be like that part of it too is like if you start seeing what looks and appears like real military tactics and real military training being used and real military actions, such as room clearings or how they enter buildings and infiltrate and exfiltrate buildings, the tactics they use. If you start doing any little bit about like hearing about this, yes, they fear us, yes, but they also want us to fear them. They
Yeah.
want us to be afraid because they're trying to militarize ICE into a paramilitary force as quickly as possible. These people are the ones who are most likely to say yes anyways and are to ask about it in the first place are the ones we want out of the service. But
Yes.
they're the ones who should be getting out of the service with a dishonorable discharge for the violation of their oath because of the anti-constitutional nature of their continued and extreme bigotry. And you don't get to be a racist like that in the military. Not when I served. There were punishments for that. You got punished for exhibiting behavior that was one, unbecoming of an officer. There are regulations built into the code of conduct from the military side for officers is that you have to live an upstanding citizen's life in a nature becoming of an officer. And none of, if you're, especially if you're an officer and you're going to go beat the fuck up on other Americans, you better get your ass out of the service now. Like, you don't deserve to wear the uniform. You're not a fucking uh, meritorious service member. You did not serve with honor or distinction. You violated your oath because your job is to protect Americans and uphold the Constitution. And there was a question I want to get back to. Is Elizabeth asked, how do the upper level military
Yeah, I
feel
saw that.
about this?
I haven't heard a word. I would
Have
love
not
to
heard a
know.
word. I can say that there's a lot of upper military who do not appear and from the leaks that have come out, do not seem to agree with the use of military overtly in the streets of the US because that politicizes the fuck out of the army. The reason they're doing this is because this is a covert way of putting US troops onto the street and just naming them ICE officers. That is the only difference. It is still the same act, just wearing a different suit. It's like them going from the white hood and cape to the red hood and cape, and then taking that off and just putting a red hat on. Now they're wearing masks again. They just took the white and red masks and they turned them into black and tactical masks because they don't want you to see who they are because they're either, I totally agree, Melissa. They're either active duty and they should not be there, or they're active duty working at alongside a felon and should not be there, or they're a felon working where they should not be. And those three things are enough. Like those
Right.
three things are enough.
That's how I stumbled across this information is because there's been the rumors going around that ICE is hiring out of prisons or parolees, people that
Hmm.
have violent offenders. And so I wanted to go and substantiate that if that's actually happening. And while I can't find any direct evidence of that, that is how I uncovered this military transition program. And I haven't I haven't been this upset. I mean, it feels like a constant, we have the flood the zone thing and it's a constant emotional assault on us and psychological assault. But being a veteran and seeing that program bastardized in that way to funnel active duty into ICE, I came to the defense of upper military leadership last week after the speech, and I said they did what we wanted them to do, to sit there and not participate in a pep rally or anything of the sort. But I gotta, I don't know, man. I don't know. This is not good. If upper military is on board with this has been a thing since June 6th.
Mm-hmm.
And we haven't heard a word about it. So we know that upper military has to be aware that their men and women are transitioning out and being used. I don't know. I don't like it. This is highly upsetting. This should, I'm sorry, this should warrant a congressional committee, an oversight committee, to immediately begin investigating. This is a very, very, very big deal.
Yeah.
Very big
And
deal.
so at some point, Democrats are going to have to come to the conclusion, Democrats who are elected in office are going to have to come to the conclusion, by pressure of citizen voices through peaceful, citizen-led action, targeting our congressional leaders, specifically Democratic leaders, and saying, you either need to force Mike Johnson to swear in the Arizona elect representative who has not been sworn in. I don't want to butcher her name. I'm sorry. And that's why I'm not saying it, because I don't want to butcher her name. And one, that's his fucking congressionally mandated job. And if he's unwilling to do that, the Democrats need to all come together and censure him and remove him from his position, and just get one or two. I bet at some point soon, Thomas Massey is going to be like, okay, I'm fucking done with this. I'm done with this because they've lied. They're attacking me. You need one or two. Form a fucking coalition government, Democrats. Force them out, because the only way we are going to get to 2026 without troops in the street is you people get off your asses and do your fucking jobs that you were elected to do. Which means, if you're a Democrat living in a democratically represented district or Senate seat, call your representative, call your senator, and say, hey, you either form a coalition government around these people, you either prove that they are now treasonous and that they have abandoned their oaths of office, and you take back fucking Congress and stop letting insurrectionists from January 6th, who committed a coup in the United States of America, from running our government. You can legally do that with the support of the people. So, Americans, it's on you guys. It's on us. It's on us to go out and tell our Democrats and our representatives and our senators they have the support. If you are in Thomas Massey's district, go fucking call him. If you live in
Hey,
Thomas Massey's district, call him and go, hey, I appreciate everything you're doing to release and get the discharge petition out for the Epstein files. I support you 100%. I would also like you to continue to support our Constitution by removing Mike Johnson. He can call for it. He can help call for it. Thomas Massey's a Republican. Have him form a coalition with the Democrats officially. He can jump ship. He can change parties. I would
someone's
welcome him. I don't like
someone's
him.
asking something in the chat, and I don't know because I didn't use the SkillBridge. It didn't exist when I got out. We just had regular old TAP, and I just did a year of reserves anyway. But someone said, do these sort of activities under SkillBridge have to have the approval of higher ups? So could they be doing this without the full knowledge? Like, how high up did you have to run that shit when you were getting in that program, or was that something that even went up your chain of command?
So I was in when the SkillBridge program was in. And like I said, I used it to get a CDL, the commercial driver's license. I had to get approval. And the memo does from SecDef does say that you have to get approval, but it does say that they will approve. They all requests will be approved for
Right.
this, which means The SecDef is overriding anybody else and saying all requests will be approved for this. There is no other approval at that
So,
point.
so is
Be-
there a possibility that upper military is not fully aware of the scope?
Possibly, yes. If your command is not briefed fully on the information and
Because it's
SecDef is
not under them.
leaving,
They're
correct.
leaving.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It's the transition assistance program itself is, and those programs are external to most unit commands. However, they need approval by unit commanders and your company commanders. That that being said, the commanders will only have the information that is available to them from higher ups of their own.
Hmm.
So if the SecDef is saying all requests will be approved for joining ICE in the keep it army simple and keep it soldier simple mentality of you use the simplest words that mean the right thing in the military to define what you're saying for an SOP or a document. All means all. Every request that comes in will be approved. That means command doesn't really get the choice to care what is going on. They should have the ability to say, hey, if I know this about this program and what you're doing, and I think it's going to violate your oath, you should not be able to do it. But I think they're being overridden. So I don't think it,
Right.
I think we should make sure that higher ups are aware and that it
Right.
becomes like a much more broad story. And I think this could be something we talk with Chris Goldsmith about. Um,
So
and
Courtney asked in the chat, is there a template or script people can use? I am going to write one up. Make sure you've subscribed to Counterstory Media because I'm going to send one out this afternoon. There's the fivecalls.org website that you plug in your zip code and it's going to give you the phone number to all of your reps. And yeah, I'm going to write up a script, but essentially it's going to be that we as citizens demand immediate oversight and transparency of the SkillBridge program that is placing active duty military in DHS and CBP. We want to know what's going on. We want full transparency like yesterday.
yeah, and maybe too, we can start putting a section into Banner and Backbone itself that are like banner calls and
Yes.
similar to the five calls, but very focused on issues that we're talking about and that we're bringing up and reporting specifically, stuff like this. So, Melissa, once you get that up, we'll cross post your original piece and
Yeah.
then we'll probably just put it as a new piece also on Banner and Backbone. That way we can pin it, we can keep it where it needs to be. So yeah, sort of and we'll make sure Five Calls is linked in the show notes. I have a lot of reusable information that we like to keep putting out to everybody. So yeah, we'll make sure that's in there. So it's easy for people to call because having resources like this from people that you trust, and like a message that is unified but meaningful gets the point across. And the more we can do it, the more that you all in the Banner and Backbone community and the Counterstory Media community and the Sick of This Shit Publications community, the more all of you guys can do that, the better. Like if you do it once and you're more likely to do it again. Do it once and
Yes.
then invite a friend. They're more likely to do it the first time because you invited them to do it rather than someone they don't
Right.
know. So use this as your free offer
And
to
in,
do a civic action today is call your
and if
representative
there's
once Melissa
anything that
posts all this.
if there's anything that you take action on, I try really hard in all my reporting and covering to not give into hysteria and to be level-headed. This is the most alarming thing to me personally that I have seen yet. This
Yeah.
greatly, deeply alarms me. And I am a proud veteran and I love love. I am still friends with most of the people I served with, but we all understand through discoveries of Vietnam, discoveries of Gulf Storm, discoveries from Baghdad. We all know and understand that there are people wearing our uniform that do not have our best interests in mind, and when given an opportunity, will behave in abhorrent ways. We know that, okay? And that
Mhm.
is by no means the entire military, but this specific opportunity is such a dog whistle for people getting out of the military. If they are of that mindset, if they fall into that camp of the people that we really don't want to be wearing our uniform and who will do unethical, immoral, illegal things when given the opportunity, these are exactly the type of individuals that are going to be called into this program. These are
Mhm.
exactly the type of individuals who are now, for all intents and purposes, from my reading of this memorandum, they are essentially free from the UCMJ, free from the rules that are set forth and the boundaries set forth in the military, and they are being set loose on our streets. This is incredibly alarming.
Yeah. And if it doesn't alarm you, I'm going to remind everyone this is a workaround to get around and while still violating the Posse Comitatus Act. This is putting federal troops on the ground in U.S. cities and towns and streets doing policing activities and law enforcement activities, which is a violation of the Posse Comitatus Act. This is them putting soldiers in the street without putting soldiers in the street and without using the Insurrection Act, which he is calling and musing to use, which means he will use it at some point. We all know he's going to try and use it, and there's very little oversight that is done around an Insurrection Act invocation.
Right.
He
And
is
we
already placing the troops on the ground who are either the most vile of our service members who want to do this because they're actively volunteering to oppress Americans. That's the most vile thing you can do. You're actively
right.
using your status and your service to oppress other Americans when the whole fucking reason you signed up was to uphold the values of the Constitution, which include life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And you can't
Right.
oppress people into happiness. It's not how
What
happiness works.
what we saw in Chicago with the storming of that apartment building, and particularly the treatment of those children, the UCMJ did prevent children in Baghdad from being
Yes.
treated that way. And our American children were treated
The,
this way.
the difference between ICE and armed services, and this is where I think we need to figure out with others, maybe try and find someone who knows Glenn Kirshner and get his opinion on this because he is a prior JAG officer, is are they in violation of last known or last standing rules of engagement during an armed conflict? And if they are, is that punishable by remand to through UCMJ and to have them stripped of their or what the punishments for that are? Because to me, when I was in the service, we all fell under the same rules of engagement. There were rules of engagement as a uh, U.S. side service member. One of those being is you don't get to do policing and law enforcement on the U.S. soil because that's against Posse Comitatus Act. I couldn't do my job in the military that I was trained for. I could not do my job legally in the United States against American citizens. It was against the law for me to do my job in the United States on an American. You know what I never did in the US? I never did my job that I was trained for on another American because it was against the fucking law. But when I was in Afghanistan and I was authorized to do my job and use my training, I was authorized to do it and use it because it was not against laws. It was within rules of engagement. And guess what? US citizens are still your number one priority to protect as a service member. And if you don't know where you're going into a building and you don't know if those are US citizens, you just violated their constitutional amendments for unlawful search and seizure. And you just violated rules of engagement because those are unarmed civilians and children. That's a war crime, fucker. So like you guys are causing war crimes in the US. And I'm a proud service member. My family's legacy goes back generations in the service across my entire family. From my brothers to my cousins to my sister-in-laws to my uncles, like people in my family, my grandparents. I still have family members who are actively in the service, and I know they are honorable. But I have family members who are out who would not agree with this either. Any of this. This is such garbage and is going to hurt the military and the armed services as an institution, which is the oldest institution, older than our country. The Army is older than the country. The flag on the Army says 1775. The country says 1776. We had you beat by a year because the Army needed to exist first. The Constitutional Army was around first. We were here, and they are politicizing it. They're politicizing it in a way that has never been done. Even during the Civil War, when Buchanan wanted certain things done, and the generals said no. The generals told President Buchanan no. And that's why we're still here as a country. Generals, this is abhorrent. You should have said no to this. This is when one of those you easily could have been like, yeah, this is going to cause a
Right.
whole bunch of alarm bells. And people are going to go, whoa, this is really, really bad. We should not do this because when it comes out, it's going to be really bad. And guess what, guys? It's out. It's out. It's going to be bad. It's going to be bad for all of you who did this. And it's tarnishing the reputations of all of us who served. It's tarnishing all the way back to George Washington, who laid down his sword to become the president, the civilian president of the United States, laid down his sword and said, I am no longer your general. I am not your king. I'm your president. And that's what he did. That's how we have these separations of powers with the military. Generals, admirals, fleet commanders, whoever you may be, you better stand up. Like you do what you need to behind closed doors to stand up and stop this and stop allowing policies like this to come out because you're ruining your soldiers and your service members' careers. You're ruining your troops' futures by allowing them to go down this route. And that's a dereliction of duty. And you should figure out what is going on in these memos. And if commanders don't know, I'm going to start reaching out more. Somebody said try and talk to Malcolm Nance. I know people in his orbit, so that might be something I could. That would be really awesome to get Malcolm Nance on. And we know people now somewhat in the orbit of Glenn Kirshner too, and I'd love to reach out and see about him because I think this is something that is really important and needs to be broadcasted much larger than we can at the moment. So first step is if you want to see Glenn Kirshner or Malcolm Nance join and like be part of a vet talk or just a talk like this where we can get their views, tag them in a comment or tag them in a post, get their attention. When we put the show notes out for Banner and Backbone, when we talk about these things, when we link to Melissa's call that she's going to put together in the script, and we have our banner calls that people can do. If you think someone like that would be interested, use their subscriber chat, talk to them. Like, talk to the creators that respond to us. We do this for a reason. Like, I respond back to folks who ask me questions and want to do show ideas for a reason, because that's the whole point, is we're collaborating with you guys. They're here too for that same reason. And so follow them, and then don't spam them, but like, throw out Banner and Backbone and say, hey, Nick and Melissa want to talk to you. These guys, these two vets are really, really interested and really concerned about this going on, this specific thing, and reference the specific thing we're talking about, of service members being allowed to use the SkillBridge program to join ICE and DHS for the last 180 days of their contract while on active duty, and perform law enforcement and civil um, and policing operations that they would not otherwise be authorized to do. And
if they're going to come back and say that they're doing desk jobs or they're doing prove it.
yeah,
The public needs evidence of that.
yeah. Yeah, and evidence is important, and that's why I think Glenn would be a great person to try and get on with us, and definitely Malcolm too, is because they're evidence-based. And Glenn was a former prosecutor for a very, very, very long time. And it was a judge advocate general, was in the JAG officer corps. So he knows what he's doing, and he knows UCMJ very well. So I think, thank you all for those suggestions. They help us help you guys, because the more we know, the more you guys all know. The more good questions everybody asks, the better. So please continue to keep asking for us. We're right at the half-hour mark. Melissa, I want to let you go. I have an appointment here too. I have to get to in about half an hour.
I have to go
so-
type this up for all these fine people.
Yeah, do you mind actually putting together the show notes for us for
I'm
this
going
one?
to put all this together. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. And then we'll get this out. So look for later in the day for the show notes from this to come out with all of the information and all the links that you guys have asked for. We will be reaching out to others within our community to talk about these issues and get them more visible. So Melissa, any closing thoughts before I let you go for the day?
No, just keep your eyes open for that to hit your inbox so we can all begin taking action. This needs to be a very loud, persistent movement to force answers on this.
Yes. Yeah. And I want to say one last thing here too is support both myself and Melissa. Come support us in our personal publications. Subscribe to both of us. Free subscribes really help and get the word out. Like, share, do all the really amazing things you guys already do for us. Help spread the word. And we're 3 away on Banner and Backbone from hitting the bestseller check mark for the first 100 paid subscribers on Banner and Backbone Network itself. We could really, really use that boost in the algorithm, and it adds and lends credibility to the work that we're doing. It adds and lends credibility to the contributors who are on the show with us and on our network. It allows us to provide bestseller check marks, because honesty and transparency is big with us. So everybody knows how Substack works, because it's important. Because if you want to be a creator too, I'd rather you know how to do it right and not have to fumble your way through. Is we can help other creators or contributors by providing them a bestseller checkmark for being part of our network, for being part of Banner and Backbone. You all make that possible. You all let us have the nice backgrounds and shows on some of our on our anti-fascist book club, where we get to hang out with multiple people and a bunch of creators all at once to do all this great stuff and get pieces out, like Chris Goldsmith and Stephanie Wilson, who is in the chat, hopefully still with us throughout the show today. And like those final 3 could really help y'all. They also help do things like support the research and work that Melissa is doing into court filings and getting court records and documents so that they cannot be sealed forever when they should not be sealed, and so that the public can have light on active cases that are impacting us and could possibly reveal the truth around the building of a surveillance state in our country. And so your subscriptions really help. Your subscriptions, your free subscriptions, your paid subscriptions, anything else. Yeah, Terrence Goggin. I've gotten to talk to Professor Goggin with Zev Shalev. He's an incredible gentleman. I want to have him on for some discussions around civics and things like that, because he has a lot to teach. So please, the more that you can help us on Banner and Backbone itself, the easier it is for us to get folks like that and to lend credibility to our name and back to their name. And so, again, thank you everyone for coming in. The 100 of you, just about 100 of you who are here with us today, please all, before you go, hit that heart button one more time. That helps also in the algorithm to boost things as we get stuff out. And Melissa, thank you for jumping on with me. Appreciate your
Thank
time.
you.
And I look forward to talking to you again. Hopefully next time we can
Yeah.
we can be the good news fairies.
Yeah, maybe.
But like Chris Goldsmith, we're the bad news fairies. We always bring the bad news with a little bit of positivity to it where we can. So, Melissa, thank you for bringing this reporting into the light and sharing this news with everyone. Thank you all for being here. And go do something active. Wait for that. Our post show notes with some information on what you can do to actively engage and help and make a call to end this program and get oversight into this program that is allowing active duty service members to serve in ICE, DHS as the Gestapo and do policing and law enforcement without the Posse Comitatus Act being violated, because it is, and we need answers. So thank you again, Melissa. Thank you, everyone. Let's go have a great day and go be active for our democracies. Thanks,
Yeah.
Melissa. All right.